Let me know if my audio sounds good, and we'll start in just a few, a few seconds, maybe about a minute or so. Okay, sounds good. So it sounds like people can hear me okay. Let's go ahead and get started. Once again, my name is Brian Patrick, and this is Designer 302. Working with formulas. This is an advanced iron speed class, so we won't be doing any kind of the intro stuff. We're going to try and just focus on formulas today. It's a very short class. It's only going to take about, hopefully about 30 minutes or so. And then what we'll do is we'll open up for questions. If you guys want to see anything specific, ask specific questions about formulas, I'll try to write some programs, show you how to do something specific. But we have a little slideshow. If you've never taken one of these advanced classes or webinars, what we do is we go through a slide presentation. I'll go jump back and forth between iron speed and the presentation, but then we'll open up for just general questions toward the end. Okay, I'll put the slides up. I'm not just going to read them because that's really boring. So I'll put them up there, give you a chance to look at them, ask questions anytime. But we should have lots of time at the end to go over anything you guys want to see. If I don't cover anything specific, you want to see something, I'll be happy to go over it at the end. But we should have lots of time. Okay, so this is kind of things we'll go over today. We're going to do some layout customizations. We'll go through where to get formulas, where you're going to be putting the formulas in the application. If you don't know where, you have some questions, we can show you where formulas are used, mostly in the toolbox, and we're going to drag and drop, and then we'll add some specific formulas for different things. Okay, this is all pretty much from the intermediate class. If you've taken the intermediate iron speed class, you're familiar with doing your page customizations, so we won't go over that. Okay, so let's start talking about formulas. You probably don't know you've already been using formulas. A lot of times the record control will use a formula for retrieving parameters off the URL. You probably have seen them, but now we're going to talk about how to go ahead and extend them and where you would put those in if you want to get to them. And this change came around version 7. Prior to that, there was a lot more hand coding that you had to do. You had to go in there and modify your page load functions. Then when they introduced formulas, that really made development in IronSpeed a lot easier. Here are some common examples of where you use formulas. And we'll talk about some of these in more detail later on. And if you want to see any specific examples of these, I'd be happy to show them. If I'm going too fast, please let me know. I've done this presentation before. I tend to do it pretty quickly, and I talk very fast. But if I'm going too quick and you want me to re-show a slide, I'd be happy to go back and explain anything in more detail. But just going to kind of get through this as quick as we can so we can have some more Q&A at the end. Okay, here's a list of the built-in functions that are in the formula language. And the really nice thing is you can extend this later on. We'll show how to add your own functions to the built-in functions. And it's pretty simple depending on where you want the scope of the visibility of your function. I'll show you where to put it in your IronSpeed application. But these are the ones that are built into them. Okay, here's an example of a formula. You'll see where they are doing a calculated column, a calculated field, where they're taking the unit price times the discount times the quantity minus the discount, and then formatting it as a currency. And this is a pretty common usage of a formula. Prior to version 7, you'd have to hand code this type of thing. You'd have to do something on an event and then fill in this column manually. But now you can just put it right in the IronSpeed Designer, put in the formula, and that'll be evaluated when that row is shown on the form. Any question where that is? I mean, I can show you where this initialized display text is. Okay, so no questions about that? Okay, another use would be to, if you want to dynamically evaluate it, and you notice this one is actually letting them change the unit prices on an edit table type of control, where we allow them to edit the price, and then when they change the price, they'll go ahead and modify the extended value. So it looks pretty complex, but if you break it down, it's just they're taking the value that they type in, parsing it, and then multiplying it times the price. It's pretty much the same the previous formula, but we're allowing them to take and put in the values themselves and then parse that out and then extending the value. Okay. No questions about that? This is another really common example of where you'd want to use a formula. As you can see, what we're doing here is we're filtering based on a parameter, on a URL parameter, and that's pretty simple to do in IronSpeed. If you notice there, what we're doing is we're pre-populating the sales representative filter. So if you're used to using the filter, you can go in there and select the value that you want to filter the table by. But what this does is this initializes that quick selector that's in the filter based on the URL parameters. So you can filter the table, but this actually is just setting the default value for the sales representative filter to be what the URL parameter is. That's another real common usage. You'll have a table where you're showing a list of values, and then you want to say your list of all your salespeople. Then you click on the person's name. You want to show just their orders. This is probably the way you would do it. You'd pass that ID on the URL, and then with just this one formula, you can go in there and filter their data. You don't have to write any code for that. You just put the formula for to pull it out of the URL and then filter the table based on that. Now this will allow them to change it, but this is just setting the default value for the sales representative. Another common usage would be to say you want to go ahead and automatically update some fields in your database when your record is saved, creating an audit trail. You want to know who's modifying the record, when it's modified. You can simply put that field on your form, even hide it if you don't want to have it shown, and then put a formula there and say when you're adding a record or updating a record, go ahead and put the now or the user ID. And what that would do is populate those fields based on the formula when the record is saved. The user doesn't have to do any kind of interaction. You don't have to write any code for that. Okay, somebody asked a question. They said, "Would you use this to do something to show the signed-in user's profile?" Certainly, that would be a great place to do that. I just went back a slide. What you could do is you want to. I think we can show that later on. But if we wanted to limit it to only showing their records, then it's simply a different formula. We can say initialize it either the filter to be the logged-in user ID, or you can just filter this table. You don't even give them the option to select a different sales representative. You would just filter your table based on the user ID, and we can do that later on if you want. We can show an example of that. But that's a very good example of to filter. You probably wouldn't do it in this instance for the user ID because then the person can always come in here and change the filter to somebody else. If you wanted to just limit a show table to the logged in user, then you do that, pretty much do that on the where clause of the query itself. You wouldn't give them the option of changing who the salesperson is. And we'll show that later on. We'll show where you can filter the records based on who's logged in. Same thing. This is what's there's actually a couple of ways to do the audit trail. If we look here, if we go back, so we look at this one. This is actually on the page itself. So you notice that we have a field called created by here, and we are putting the value of the user ID and the now here. This is on a page. So what happens is when the user hits this page, those fields will be updated with those values of the user ID or the timestamp for now. There's also a different way to do that for an audit trail, and that's to do it at the database level. Pardon me 1 second. And the advantage of doing it at the database level is that it's application-wide. It doesn't matter which page the user's on. So the difference there is doing it on the audit trail. If I do it on the database tab, create this formula, what happens is anytime that database record is updated, these two fields will be updated. Whereas if I do it at the page level, it's only going to do it when they hit that one page. Okay. So it's a little different there. One is audit trail based on hitting this page, or audit trail based on every page in your application, just depending on where you put the formula. Okay, so here is another example, and this is where somebody asked if you want to limit it based on your records. This is specifying the where clause. This is for a drop-down, but this all works for table controls or anything. A lot of times what you want to do is, say you have a drop-down field into another table, a foreign key lookup, but you want to limit those records that are being displayed in the drop-down. So this is a good place for a formula. I can show an example of that if you guys would like to see one. Okay, maybe later we can show an example of that. Okay, somebody said they'd like to see an example of that, so let's go ahead and do that real quick. What we'll do is I have an application up that I created last night, and this is actually one I did for a video that I redid. Let me go ahead and run this. This is just a real simple schools table database, and I think I have a foreign key into another table. And what I'll do is I'll limit the drop downs that other key shows. Oh, let me find my page. Okay, so what this is just a simple list of schools in Dallas County. And you notice I have a list. Let's change this to a drop down, and then what we'll do is we'll limit the values that show up in that drop down. Okay, so let's go to our edit schools. We have the school district. Right now that's a foreign key into our school district. So let's go ahead and first of all we will view our properties. And let's change that from a quick selector to a drop down. And then what we'll do is we'll change that drop down to filter out values that are displayed in there. Okay, so if we go to our edit, this is another real common. Say you have a lookup table that has lots and lots of different lookups in it, and you want to filter the drop-down list just for like a subset of your filter list, this would be a chance we did it. So here we have our drop-down list, right? And you notice there's quite a few of them, and we want to filter this drop-down list based on some criteria. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. We come down here to our filter, and we see our query here, our school district query. We can go ahead and we can modify this query to filter on some condition, and I'll just have to look to see what fields are available to filter on. Or you can pick some constant. But a good example of that would be, like I said, if you had a lookup table that had lots of different lookups in it, and you want to filter to some subset of lookups. This is where you do this. Okay, so what it is, I'm modifying my school district query that's on this page. I'm going to add a where clause, and this is where we put a formula in. Okay, so this is our school districts table. Let's pick a school district state. Okay, say I want to limit it to state, and we'll say is equal to, and I'm sure hoping that it's abbreviated like that. So what I've done is I just done a static formula, and I've just put in a state equals Texas. Now, I actually haven't looked at the data to see if that's correct, but we'll hope it's correct. And while we're at it, let's go ahead and increase the number of lines that are shown. Okay. And somewhere they keep changing it. I gotta find out where they put that maximum. Let's do 37. Okay, let's rebuild that. So hopefully now our school district should be limited to the ones that are in the state of Texas. I tell you what, let's go ahead and actually have it show the state too, because we don't know if it's going to work right. We don't know if it's working right or not, because how do we know all the school districts that are in Texas? So this is where you'd use another formula that we talked about. I think we talked about that later on. Let's go ahead and change it. So we're going to populate from database. So this is where we want to change it. We're going to actually change the formula for what's displayed in the drop-down. So just right now we say school district name, and we want to go ahead and add what state it's in. So let's go ahead and just add maybe a couple spaces or parentheses. And this is really nice. What I can do is I can right-click on this. I can go to my record, and it knows that this is a foreign key into my school district's table. And what it does is it gives me the list of all the fields that are in that database table. So I don't have to know the name of the field. I can go ahead and just right-click on it, go to my DB record, and it'll show me all the fields that are in the ones that are in the foreign key that this field points to. So let's go ahead and just show the state. So we're kind of doing two things. We're doing two formulas. We're doing a formula for what's displayed in the drop-down, and we're doing a formula to filter the drop-down. Okay, so we've changed the display, and we've changed the query to filter it for only the ones that are in that state. Let's build it. And let's run it. And let's hope it works. Okay, so if I go back to my edit record, and now I should have, you notice that it does have the state in there, and it should, there you go, so it's filtering now based on all the ones that are just in Texas. Okay, so we've changed two formulas. One is what's displayed in the drop-down, and one is what's filtered in the drop-down. Looks like I got a couple of duplicates in there, which is why you see IronSpeed adding these IDs. Any question about that? Those are two really very common usage of adding formulas, displaying what's in the dropdown. And before, like I said, prior to version 7 of IronSpeed, you would have had to go into the code where it generated this dropdown and modified the what was displayed there. There's a way to do it as a display foreign key as, but just by changing that one formula, it's changed it on this page. I haven't done any coding. Was required to go ahead and add multiple fields from our foreign key table into what's displayed in the dropdown. Okay, let's go back and see what we got. Sorry. So any questions about that? We'll talk about that. We can show that again later on if you want to see that. Another really easy thing to do is to go ahead and add a Google map to your to your show table if you want to show a little Google map. Say you have fields that have a latitude and longitude in your database. Very common to want to show people where something is located. And this slide is actually incorrect. This little formula refers to a different slide that's no longer in this presentation. But right now it's actually a lot easier just to say drag and drop a Google map, and you don't need to actually do this formula syntax. You'll get a map that looks like this. Okay, so now we can talk about custom functions. So you know that list of functions that I showed you earlier. If those don't have what you want, you can write your own functions and incorporate that into the function language, so that you can create your own custom function values if you want. And depending on where you write the function, the visibility of that function and which formulas it can be used in will vary depending on where you write it. So that's kind of the trick, is to know where to put it. And this presentation will show you. If you want it local to the page, then you write it in the page class. If you want to, global, you can write it to a global base util functions or the database level. But probably the most common usage would probably be on a page. You have a field that you want to show some custom function on. Then you write it in your page function. Okay, somebody said, would you illustrate an example of a custom function? Sure, let's go ahead. Not a problem. I'd be happy to. Let's go ahead and what would be the best thing? Would you want to see it on the page or the table level? Okay, somebody wants to see a page level custom function, so that'd be happy to. I think we got plenty of time to show that. We're actually almost done here, so I will go ahead and do that real quick, since that seems to be the most common thing. So let's see if we can add a custom function, and we will create one, and let's just do it on the school name. Let's just we'll modify the function, so we'll say school name. Let's go back to our presentation, and it says the way to do it is to go ahead and go ahead and you just write it as you would just pretty much any other function. But what we're going to do is put it in our page level source code. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and we'll do the function first. So we have our edit schools. Now this happens to be in C#. I know that the slide shows VB, but I'm going to go ahead and do it in C#. Okay, so we'll do a little public function, public string. It'll return a string, and we'll just say something like, my custom function. Oh, let's pass it a string s, and it will return. We'll just return s. String. Oh, let's return lowercase. How's that sound? Let's return the string in lowercase. Too lower. Let's try that. Okay. So my custom lowercase function. We'll call it my custom lowercase function. Okay. So we'll pass it a string that will return it just as lowercase. My custom lowercase function. Okay, and you can pretty much do any kind of processing here you want. And let's see if that works. I actually haven't done custom functions in a long time, but we will try it. Okay, so we're going to add the school name. We're going to show the school name, and then we're going to show, in parentheses, let's try showing it with my custom function. Page.myCustom lowercase function, and we're going to pass it the school name. If this works, I will be really, really impressed. No, this will work. We'll make it work. Hopefully I did that right. Let's give her a try. Oh, first thing, we probably need to change that to a literal. let's go ahead and change that to a literal just so that we can see it work. Let's change that to a literal. Okay, build it. Somebody asked, with Google Maps, can you show more than one location on a map? They're not with that built-in function. The built-in function takes one address, and it just does the call for the Google static maps. Now, Google and Bing do have APIs where you can build a URL that does return several locations on the map, but the built-in functions, I believe, only work with one address. If we go to our toolbox, we can take a look here where it has the Google Maps. I think it's, I can remember where they put them. Oh, Google Maps. You notice it's just one address, one location, one location. So the built-in functions, they only have one. If you want to show multiple ones on a static map, you'd have to code the URL encoding yourself. It can be done, but not with the built-in functions that are in the toolbox. Okay, let's give this a try. Hopefully I didn't make any kind of typo mistakes. Look at there, right there. So there we go. We called a custom function on the page. So you notice we have, this is the original field, and then we called my custom function, which just converted everything to lowercase. Okay, so pretty simple. Now that custom function is only available on this one page because because I wrote it in the page class. Now depending on where I put it, and there's another slide that'll show you where to put the different functions, I could use that same function on any page. So it all depends on the scope of where you write the function, where the visibility of it is. Okay, that was a very trivial function. But you can kind of see what you can do with it. If you want to, you can actually go out there and pretty much do anything you want that you can write code for. Just call a function, and this one I'm actually passing in a parameter. Okay. So this is an example of where you do it on a table control row. That one I did on a page, on a record control on a page. But say you want to do a function that was repeated on each row of a table. Once again, you just have to write the function in the proper class, the proper C# class or the VB. I'm not sure they call them in VB, but depending on where you write it, then its visibility is there. So now I do have a show table. I could copy that same function to my other class and then call it just in a formula just like that one. Oops. And this kind of shows you where, if you look at the source code, you'll probably see these table control row classes. And then, once again, it's just a public function that you write there. And like I said, there's also, you can write a global function that's visible from any page, as well as the data access layer, which would be used on like the databases tab. If you want to call a function there or from any page, what you do is you'd go in and you'd put it in your base formula utils class. And I can show you where those are. Those are under the shared part of your tree. You'll see base application page and base formula page. I believe to see the base formulas, you actually have to turn on all source files. Okay, we should have our formulas page. Base formula utils. Okay. Any question about that? Where you put the scope of your function? Okay. This is an example of showing that same, the get global custom value. Any questions so far? I mean, that's pretty much it. I think that's it. Yep, that's actually everything we have. So like I said, we took exactly 30 minutes, and now I'll just take time for question and answer. I'll show you any kind of examples if I can figure them out. Okay, somebody asked, one function that has given me a scare to use is the highest value of a column in a record set, the get largest. How is that implemented in version 12.02? That is a good question. I don't know if I've actually ever used that one. Somebody asked how to do the highest value column in a record. Let's see if I can do that real quick. Let me see if I can do that one real quick. Let me go to my show schools table. I know I have a column called number of students. Let's see if we can actually get this to work. Oh, I'm sorry. The class is done. If you guys want to go, I'm just going to stay and do. Anybody want to see specific examples of formulas, and that's what we'll do. But if you need to go, the class is technically over. But if you have questions or want to see what I'm doing for other people, feel free to stay. Let's go ahead and add number of students. Let's see if I can get the highest value for this one. Somebody asked, how do we see the get formula for the highest value? Okay, there's a maximum of, let's see if we can try this one. Maximum of, let me find my table here. I'm sorry, let me find my table. This is my schools table. Maximum number of students. I think I can just drag in here. Total number of students. Look up number of students, max query. Okay, let's finish this. I've never actually done this before, so I'm going to see if this works. Okay, so I've added a column called number of students, which is one of the fields in my table. And somebody asked how to get the largest value of it, and I think I can do this max function. Let me go ahead and labels, and we'll just do number of students. Okay, let's see if this works. And then somebody asked for an example of dependent drop-downs, and I'll do that next. But let's see if this works first. Oh, I don't know if I built it. Okay, let's go back to our show schools. Okay, so notice here's my number of students, and then this is the total that I added, which should be the largest one. If I sort by this column, let's see if I can find it. Oh, you know what? I'm actually filtering this table here. Let's go back to our table. Let me turn off that filter and see if that worked. Properties. Let's take that out. Finish. You notice it actually did create a different query for me there. Let's try this first. Let's reload this. And sure enough, it did. So you see there's our largest value in our table, and there it is in the footer. Okay, we can go look at the formula that it uses for that and see what it did. And you should be able to use that formula wherever. You don't have to use it in your show table. If I go to this here, you can see this is the formula. Let's look up max num student mac query. And if you want to go ahead and add filters to that one, you can go ahead. If you notice right here, there is the query right there that it's using for that. And we can go ahead and add filters for that as well. Okay, so you see max num students is max num students. But if we want to, we can go ahead and modify that query and add where clauses and formulas for that. Okay, does that answer the question on how to get the largest value out of a table? Okay, so somebody else wanted to see example of dependent dropdowns? Okay, I love that question. That's a good question. That comes up quite often. Let's go to our add schools district. So somebody asked for a dependent dropdown. Let's go ahead and we will add a dependent dropdown. Remember, let's go ahead to our school district. Let's change that to a dropdown. And what we'll do is we're going to add a sort of row above it. Let's do this. Let's go ahead and add a dependent dropdown for the school district, where we'll add like a state filter, and then we want to be a dropdown, and then we'll make school district dependent on that other dropdown. Does that make sense? So we're going to filter it dynamically based on a value of a different dropdown. So we can go to our toolbox. Sorry. Let's go ahead and, it's been a while since I've done this. Let's go ahead and add a dropdown. Okay, so we're going to add a drop-down list. And what we can do is make a query for this drop-down. What we'll do is we'll add a query for the drop-down of states that are in our table, and then we will go ahead and filter the school district based on this drop-down. Okay, so what we'll do is, first of all, on this drop-down, we need to modify this query. Let's go to our, so we see drop-down list query. And what we're going to do is we're going to pick just the states that are available from our school districts table. Okay, so right now it just kind of has a generic select. So we need to go ahead and tell it which table we want, which field. Let's go down to our school districts table. Okay, and what we want is just the states from our school district table. And we don't care about anything else. Okay, so now what we want to do is when we select the state from this dropdown, we want to filter this dropdown based on the value of that dropdown. It's actually really simple to do. So now our school districts dropdown, school districts, if I can find it here. Okay, school districts query, it's this one. We're going to modify this query. Okay. From where we want to limit the state of the school district to be what the value is on the other dropdown. So we'll say the state of our dropdown is equal to, and I can click on formula. And this is where IronSpeed makes it really simple for you. I don't have to know how to properly specify it. I can just right-click here, go down to UI controls, and you notice there's my drop-down list right there. I can just select it, and IronSpeed goes ahead and puts in the proper syntax for you for selecting the selected value of that drop-down. I'm going to uncheck this ignore where clause because I only want to show the list when they select a school drop-down. Okay. Let's see if that works. Now I may have to go ahead and turn on auto postback on this so that when you change it, it'll refill the school districts table. Let's give that a try. Let's give that a try. Reload. Okay, remember that was on our Add Schools page. Let's go to School, Add Schools. Oops. Guess thinking about it. Oop, I'm sorry, I actually hit the back. I accidentally hit the back button. Let's try this again. That is taking too long. Hello? I tell you what, we'll change the edit page that already works. Okay, there it goes. It took a while. So you notice that this is our states. This is the state drop-down that we added. And I don't have any school districts. I do have school districts listed there. That's everything. But if I filter this, so now if I pick like Indiana, it filters this drop-down based on the value of this drop-down. I go to Texas. There you go. So there's all the Texas ones. So does that answer the question on how to do dependent drop-downs? It's really simple with formulas. All you have to do is just kind of right-click and then pick the control that you want to point to. In your query, just pick the control that you want to point to. Okay, anything else anyone would like to see? Got about 15 more minutes, if you like. Okay, I'll wait another minute or so, see if anybody has any other examples of formulas they'd like me to do. Okay, well, if there's nothing else, I guess that's pretty much it for the class. Thank you for attending, and feel free to take any of the other Iron Speed Advanced courses. Somebody asked if I have a workflow example. I've never actually done a workflow example. I don't know if there is a video on that. You might check the videos and see if there's one example of that. But I don't know how to do that in formulas. Okay, well, I guess there's no other questions. I guess we will call it a day. And once again, thank you for attending our class today. And we will see you next time. Bye-bye.